fellow travelers, and welcome to the Versus Stars podcast. All my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. And remember, click the subscribe button, everybody. This is an amazing episode because Samantha Win boards the mothership. You know her as Euboea in Wonder Woman and Justice League. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Miss Win. Thank you so much for coming to the Versus Stars podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute honor to speak with you.
Oh, the feeling is mutual.
Thank you. So I always start with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love for acting and who your earliest influences?
You know, it'd be hard to say because as far as I can remember, I've always wanted to do acting, but most definitely some of my earliest influences were in the martial arts genre. So Jackie Chan movies, you can I'm sure imagine me as a tiny child just cracking up and watching the movies with my family. And I loved everything Jackie Chan and Jet Li. I come from a wushu background myself, which is the performance martial art that Jet Li does. So whenever I would see either of those two on screen, I just, it ignited a fire in me. And I knew that for the rest of my life, I would be dedicating it to that passion. And I have not stopped.
You must have loved the everywhere, everything, all at once, whatever the exact phrase for it.
Yeah, I was telling my friends, I think that this is now my favorite movie. It has everything. If you know me, I'm a bit of a quirky person as well. So my sense of humor can be out there. And that just encompassed everything. It had heart, it had action, it had ridiculous comedy that I just adored. And then the cast and seeing so many representatives of the AAPI community and it doing so well in the awards season, it's just everything to be proud of and everything that's near and dear to my heart, all encompassed in that one film.
I will say me and my wife loved that movie. And I will say it took me a little while to like buy in. Like, I was watching, I was like, this is just weird. I don't know if I like it. Then as I bought into it, it just was like, this is absolutely genius. Like that scene with the rocks is heartbreaking.
I know. Nothing is happening.
Right.
It's just subtitles on a screen and you're like, oh, my heart. And then the things that you find yourself caring about so deeply, the everything bagel concept, like so much of it didn't even make sense. And yet I was so emotionally connected to it. So they did a wonderful job at making, I think, really heartfelt, in-depth, very real issues for people in a lighthearted sense so that we could receive it and enjoy it and feel it without it being such a dark movie. So that is how I live my way through life. I love it.
Like I said, I don't think I ever saw a movie that on the one hand didn't take itself seriously, but on the other hand was somewhere deeply serious. And it's like this weird balance. And like the people with the hot dog fingers, I was like, first time I think I bumped into each story, I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I started watching more of it. I was like, I got so invested. I was like, holy crap, please don't hurt the hot dog hand people.
I know. The Rakakuni storyline.
Yeah.
I'm so invested. I'm like, get it back. And I'm like, what am I cheering for right now?
And I think the one thing interesting about the movie, and especially if someone who does martial arts, is that it felt like the martial arts was part of the performance, part of the acting. Now, when you do martial arts, is there a connection between the martial arts and the acting?
100%. I think the more in tune that you can be with your body, the more available you are in your emotional life. So when you don't have to think about every little foot placement, every little thumb placement, then it really frees you to emotionally experience the moment as it's happening. Whereas if you're newer to martial arts or fight choreography, it can be a little challenging to be present as the character and really take in everything around you because there are so many technical aspects, and for safety reasons you really have to respect those technicalities that it can be hard to manage all of it in your mind. But I feel very grateful that I've been doing it for so long now. It feels second nature. So it's just memorizing a sequence of moves, do it enough times and my body remembers, but I don't have to remember how to do each individual move anymore. So 1,000%, just having an awareness of your body or being able to memorize choreography, whether it's from dance or martial arts or other sports, is a huge advantage on screen.
Is it, this might be, is it easier to remember the choreography than it is the dialogue, or is dialogue easier than the choreography?
It feels the exact same for me. And the process for me is very similar as well. It's just about repetition. So performing a fight a few times, eventually my body just wants to do it anyways. And then running lines, eventually your body just wants to do it anyways. So you don't need to think about what you're saying anymore. You're just experiencing the feeling, and the words will come out in the same sequence every time anyways. At least that's what it's like for me, but I can't speak for everyone. I've definitely approached acting in a similar fashion to martial arts because that was what I grew up doing. So that's all I knew how to train something. But I think most actors would probably say something similar. Repetition in anything will just garner results.
So how did you go from martial arts and acting into stunt performing?
How do you not go from martial arts and acting performing? I didn't necessarily plan on that, but because those two are just a perfect marriage together, once I was training in martial arts, and I've also been acting since I was about 10, I think I started my first commercials. Then it was just a natural progression into it. I was very fortunate that at that time, YouTube was pretty new, Facebook was pretty new, and just for fun, I decided to make a demo reel with a couple friends that was just me in a gym, flipping around, doing some kicks, and I posted it on my Facebook page. And I guess there were enough martial artists and stunt performers within my vicinity growing up in that world that a few had seen and then reached out to me on Facebook to give me my opportunities for my first stunt jobs. So from there, I knew that that even was a path. It wasn't something I necessarily thought of or heard of very often. But when it presented itself, I thought, who in the world wouldn't want to do that? Enjoy martial arts and enjoy stunts. This is or enjoy acting. This is the perfect segue into everything, and to learn how to be on set, to meet all of the people that I've been admiring from afar for so long. I couldn't have been luckier.
Well, when you're playing a stunt double for another actor, how important is it to mimic the mannerisms of the actor that you're the stunt performer for?
It is very important. It's not something that is talked about as often, I feel like, because it is, people have the idea that you're hired and you go and you perform a singular stunt or a singular sequence, but so much of it really is embodying the character. And I think we've all seen examples of, say, old Hong Kong style movies where the stunt double really doesn't match. It does take you out for that brief moment. Like all of a sudden, if they change genders, or if they're walking a completely different way, or their silhouette is just completely different, it is very obvious. And it's one of those things where you don't notice when it's good, but you notice when it's bad. So it is very important to try to adapt to the actor's walk, just the general way that they carry themselves, because when you notice it wrong, then you're not doing your job.
I went back because I'm a nerd. I'm a fan of Star Trek, so I went back and I watched the original Star Trek series. And there's a scene in the most famous one. I think it's Spacey, where he's fighting Khan, the first appearance of Khan, and Kirk is fighting obviously what the hell's the name of the guy who plays Khan? I can't remember but fighting the guy Khan, and you see they put the camera dead on the stunt performer of Kirk, and it's so obvious it's totally not him, and you wonder why would you ever put it on his face, but it took you totally out. You're like, oh my, it almost was comical at that point.
Yes. Oh, I have a similar experience. I'm not going to name the movie because I don't want to embarrass the makers, but we were shooting it, and the stunt double for one of the actors is supposed to be getting his head slammed into the floor, and the shot was right on his face. So it's like as if you were the camera. It's right here, and he's just getting his head slammed in slow motion. But when I watched the movie after, they used that shot in slow motion with the stunt double's face, and I don't think they realized that it was the stunt double, which is what broke my heart. I think they just thought that it was the same as the actor. Maybe they couldn't tell the part, which is not great. But it is one of those things where sometimes it just slips through the crack and is very embarrassing.
Now every listener now is rummaging through your entire library of film going, where is this scene? I want to find this scene.
I know, I don't want to get in trouble.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
So when once again, there's you as some performer, and then there's the actor. Before you do your stunt, do you talk to the actor and go, hey, what, try to match up or try to discuss? Is there any discussions going on between you and the actor for these scenes?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. If I have a specific question, say they're going to have to pick up the scene after the stunt, so I can ask if they have a preference on which leg I land with forward, or do you want to be facing this way or this way? I might try to ask questions for those things. But when it comes to leading up to the stunt, part of the job is watching to see how they're already starting the move, so you can take over the same way and perform the stunt. Like if they are running and they go right foot, left foot, you're supposed to see that already, so you don't have to go and ask because you've already had your visual confirmation. But there will be stray questions here or there, like if they want a specific gesture or they want to get up in with a certain kind of energy, then those are great conversations to have, and that would be the time to have it.
Is there, because I know sometimes stunt performers follow a certain actor on a lot of what they do. Is there a certain actor that you tend to repeat the stunts for in different films and whatnot?
Well, it's been a while for me. I think my last stunt job was probably 2015 or so. So not anymore, but at the time I was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doubling for Ming-Na Wen for a while. So that was one that I really enjoyed. And I just love Ming as a person. And then her other stunt double, who was unavailable for a period of time, is also a very good friend of mine. And her name is also Ming. So it was like a team of Mings. That is someone that I just loved to work for. But I think I got sprinkled around. I got to work with many different people. And not all of the actresses that I stunt doubled are necessarily purely action. So they might go and work on other genres. And I was just kind of getting shuffled around, which is wonderful. I got to meet lots of new people in the process.
Well, like I said, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a fantastic show. So how was it to work with Ming-Na Wen directly? I mean, what was that partnership like in a little more detail?
Ming just lights up any room that she's in, and her laugh is contagious. You can hear it from 3 stages away. Anybody that has worked with her, I'm positive, can confirm this. So I felt like I was most definitely the luckiest of the stunt team for getting to double Ming. Nothing against any of the other actors. They're all really lovely, but she just has a certain fun, light energy about her where it really felt like teamwork. Like she tagged me in and then she's back in. And there was one fight scene where it was a May versus May. So it was us actually fighting each other, and they had face replacement dots, and we just kept having to change outfits back and forth. So we're like running into this elevator together to keep changing outfits and then go and then perform the other sides of the fight. And that was one of my favorite experiences on set, just because she's such a good person and such a good friend. So getting to do that with her was just loads of fun. And she took every advantage in making all of the inappropriate jokes, and I loved it.
So as a stunt, when doing stunts, how do you balance risk versus the challenge?
Well, there are different aspects of stunts. So there are stunt drivers, there are high fall performers, there are people that are more familiar with fire. I guess luckily specialized in martial arts and wire work, acrobatics. So most of my work were in those categories, which is inherently a bit less risky than the driving or the fire burns or the high falls. So I never really got put in much position to have to balance that. Most of my risk was you might get punched in the face or kicked in the face. And I've been roundhouse kicked in the face at full force. So that is probably my worst day on set, my version of a worst day on set.
Right.
But I have never been asked to do a massive high fall, because they do have divers and people who are just more comfortable with that, who would probably do a better job, and not back out of fear all day like and I didn't necessarily go out pursuing those jobs either. Maybe you could think I'm a bit of a wimp because of it. And at that time in stunts, you want to seem like the tough person. And I like to think that I could if the challenge arose. But I think inherently as a person, I don't have that need for speed kind of personality. So I'm okay not doing that. I'm okay not flipping the car and setting myself on fire. I love performing and I love acting and I love all things that allow me to do that. But I have a whole other level of respect for the stunt performers that do genuinely risk their lives in these gags, because it's no joke. And a lot of people get very seriously injured. And I don't take that for granted. And so if I work with them, I make sure they know that I know that I'm not that, and that I appreciate them.
With your martial arts background, I don't think I envy the person who actually hit you with the roundhouse. That person must have had to run for their life afterwards.
Actually, it was my ex-husband.
Oh, was it an accident?
No, it 100% was. And honestly, I and everybody else on set felt so bad for him, because he felt like the worst person. I think his pain internally was so much greater than my pain externally. So it was a bit funny to me afterwards, but the period with the black eye wasn't fun for him.
Did he get a free shot afterwards?
No. I felt like I was trying to cheer him up the whole rest of the day.
So what do you think is the biggest misconception about stunt performing?
A big misconception that the job entails the actual stunt. So the job of being a stunt performer is actually so much greater than what you film on camera on the day. There is so much prep and so much rehearsal that goes into any action sequence ahead of time. You could have an entire team of stunt people working for months before a sequence is shot, and they already shoot another version of it, but say on smaller, more mobile cameras, and without wardrobe, not on location. So they get to test everything, and a lot of times even create the camera angles and the preferred ways of shooting it that are oftentimes used in the final project, or the final version on camera. So there really is so much creation that happens ahead of time with the stunt department. And then so many performers even know how to do basic visual effects now as well. So they can put those into the pre-vis, or pre-visualization is what it's called. So that when it gets to the director and the producers and the cast, they kind of have an idea of what's going on in the action sequence while they learn it. So it's an amazing learning tool for everybody else. Sometimes, like I said, they actually take the exact shots that the stunt team had made. But also there might be stunt performers practicing huge stunt gags that another performer will actually do on the day, but they won't get the recognition, or they won't get the stunt adjustment. They don't get a lot of the other bonuses that you get when you're actually performing it on camera. So really the scope of the job is so much greater, and it entails so much more than people realize.
Do you think overall it gets the recognition it deserves?
I hope that eventually there will be an Oscar category for stunt performers, because I know firsthand they put so much heart and so much risk into filmmaking. The ones that are genuinely risking their lives, I would hope, can have the same level of recognition as other important departments. Not to minimize anyone else's, but I think that stunts is at least equal to that. So I would hope that that can be recognized at the Academy Awards eventually. Hopefully sooner than later.
They've been talking about that, so it must be coming down the pipe.
I think so. And I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood really putting the spotlight on that relationship between stunt performer and actor was helpful too. And I know that there are so many actors who have worked on huge action films that really know what it entails, and so they have been vocal and supportive of that movement, and every voice helps. So I think we just have to keep moving with it.
Well, you also play in Wonder Woman Justice League. You play I'm gonna get the pronunciation wrong. Euboea. Am I saying,
Yeah.
am I in the ballpark of the name? How do you pronounce it?
Euboea.
Euboea. Euboea. All right. So you play Euboea in Justice League and Wonder Woman. So how do you get involved in these projects, and what excited you about joining the DC universe?
How did I get involved? It was just so long ago now. I got to audition for the first Wonder Woman, so that would have been the first film. I auditioned for Christy Carlson, read some of the lines for an Amazonian. I was so over the moon that I got to be a part of it. What was the other part of the question? I already forgot.
Well, and what was it like to be in the DC universe?
Oh my gosh. I feel pretty damn lucky that I've gotten to experience different sides of the DC universe. So that was how I got to be a part of Wonder Woman and Justice League as an Amazonian. But prior to that, I had worked on Man of Steel, and I was a Kryptonian Man of Steel. So I was already in the DC universe as a different, I guess, DC race. And got to experience yet another one. So I felt over the moon, because I had thought maybe I couldn't be in that world anymore if I'd already been seen. Because prior, now that's like a general rule of thumb. If you've been seen before, then that's who you are. But I got to play that. And then also on the TV show Arrow, I got to play leader of the Ninth Circle on that. So I've gotten to be in 3 different DC worlds within the same universe, and it's such a joy. The comic book world is one of those rare places that brings so much joy to so many people. I really feel like people of both genders, all ages, have heard of many of the superheroes, and then B, have some sort of personal story or emotional connection to at least one of those characters from their childhood or from experiences in their lives. These characters are just so beloved around the whole world that to be a part of their history and pop culture is an honor.
So what was more fun, being a Kryptonian or an Amazonian?
I think being a Kryptonian is more fun, because I guess it's, playing bad guys is always more fun. But I liked being an Amazonian because I met so many wonderful people, and there were so many amazing women that were around me, and many of them I'm still very good friends with. And that kind of connection and experience would be very difficult to match. So an Amazonian will forever be near and dear to my heart.
So when you played, we have the name wrong, Euboea, did you, like, what were you told about the character? Is there a backstory about the character that it may not have been seen in the movie that you know about? Did you create a backstory for yourself that is like your headcanon for the character?
I did look up the lore on Euboea. So Euboea is a character. Not a lot of that was really carried over into the film. There were more sequences that we shot that didn't necessarily make it into the final cut. So in those sequences that unfortunately you guys can't see them, but I got to bring more of how I envisioned Euboea to life. Like there was a dagger sequence that we got, and that was kind of her weapon, but you still get to see it when I do my move off of the horse and throw the double dagger. So that's my weapon of choice. And I love it. I love all weapons.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was so much fun. But that was probably it when it comes to pre-existing lore. And of course, in each moment, I would have tried to create my own. Whatever just happened was my relationship to these people, but that wasn't necessarily dictated by pre-existing Amazonian lore.
Is it this when, especially the scene with Steppenwolf in Justice League, there's so much CGI work in it. Is it difficult to, or what is the challenge of acting in that kind of CGI world?
Well, specifically in that scene, my challenge was that I was definitely on the shorter end of the Amazonians. There was a shot. Dayton Caro was shooting it. We were doing it on second unit at the time. And he was trying to get me in the middle with these two other Amazonians on the side as they're putting the mother box in place. But the angle of where the camera was, you just couldn't see me. I was just too short. But you could see everyone else's heads, but then I just disappeared behind the mother box. So he built a ramp. We'd taken a little break, and 30 minutes later, there was like a wooden ramp built so that like I could be a little bit taller. And we thought it would work, but then I did, and I stood on it, and it's the mother box, and then it was like feathers from my head. So that was probably my biggest challenge, was just fitting in the shots, because I was not quite at the same height as everyone else.
So you get to we get to share some scenes with Gal and Christopher Pine. What was that experience like?
As far as my experience with them, they were both just lovely individuals and so supportive. Some of our days were pretty rough out there just because of the heat. And in the wardrobe, you can't get out of it easily. You can't sit easily. You just can't get around very easily. And so they were just lovely, positive energies to be around. And then also being able to watch their work with each other, I think was a treat for any of the other Amazonians or actors around. But yeah, Gal was always I didn't get to work with Chris as closely. We weren't in any scenes together. But Gal, she just brings a certain lightness and sweetness to any room, any set. And she was a wonderful leader in keeping spirits high and having everybody feel appreciated and seen. And she very much felt like she was part of the Amazonians.
How badly did you want to duel Gal? Be like, oh, come on, we're gonna do a sword fight against each other.
We did get to do a little. It didn't make it into the final cut, but there was I did have more interaction fighting with her, but I guess you'll never know.
I assume you could win. So
well, if it was in real life, I mean, I would hope so, but no one has ever actually tested my real sword skills. I mean, who really has in an actual fight? Who breaks out real swords? And
that's true.
So you never really know. Yeah, I always like to think that I would do well. I've done it enough with dulled blades and in choreography, but maybe I would be the person to trip and fall on my own sword before the fight even began. I could say.
I will say, it's kind of fun. I just saw World War Z yesterday when the guy's running up the ramp, the big scientist, and he actually accidentally shoots himself running when he falls. I was like, that's got to be a thing with those people carrying weapons around all the time. You don't see it often, but it's there.
Yeah, I bet some trained professionals, it would even happen to them too. That's just that's just life happening. You can't predict that.
Yeah, and I doubt anyone would let you take out a real sword on Gal Gadot. I want to be like, I think probably get into some trouble for that one.
No, I would not accept that challenge either. Anytime on set, I'm handed a blade, and sometimes I feel like they're not dulled enough. And I have had to return swords before to go, this is still too sharp, because it could still impale somebody, even if it's not. But anyways, yeah.
Well, someone who does have the skills of fighting like you do, and obviously sometimes you're matching up against someone who isn't a professional in those areas like you are. Is it difficult to kind of almost, I guess, imagine you'll have to like slow yourself down to not like hurt this other like novice individual? I mean, is that difficult? Is that even more difficult than if you were fighting someone who actually knew what they were doing?
It's not easier or it's not difficult to slow myself down per se, but, and I won't say which actors these are, but it is difficult because in that moment they need to act still. So they need to act like they know exactly what they're doing and go at their full speed. But their angles come because they haven't had as much training. They don't hit you on the angles that is choreographed. They try to. It's not like they're doing it on purpose,
right.
But their swords come at unexpected angles because they're amped up and in the moment. And so the hardest part is that it feels like a real sword fight on my end because I don't really know where it's coming or when it's coming. It's choreographed, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily what they're doing. So it is actually more stressful and a bit scary for stunt performers fighting untrained actors, because some actors are really wonderful and just have general body awareness and are just natural at that weapon or hand fighting, whichever. But some, it is not natural to them. And we all have those things. Like if I, was trying to play football, I would probably be terrible. But they just never done it before. So it's scary. It feels like you're in a real fight, and their timing is also a bit off. Like they might be going slow, and then out of nowhere, one hit just comes really fast at you, and you're like, "Where is this going?" So it feels like war.
Have you ever been seriously injured in one of these type fights? Other than the roundhouse, obviously, from your ex.
Yeah, I feel bad for saying that. I mean it in this way. I'm not throwing him under the bus. For me, it was hilarious because he felt so terrible. But I wouldn't say, knock on wood, I haven't had any terrible injuries, but there are some gags where it is so painful and it's just inevitable because you're on a wire, because you're being launched 30 feet to land on pressed concrete, and your wardrobe reveals too much. You can't put a lot of pads on as a woman. A lot of women's wardrobe is tighter. So if it's like skinny jeans, you might not be able to fit the same amount of pads that a male performer might if they're wearing like traditional like boot cut jeans. So I've had pain, but not necessarily injury, thankfully. I'm positive I've had at least a few concussions. And that's also why I don't do stunts anymore. I know that my heart is with acting, and it is a risk every time you are on set as a stunt performer. And it never passes. It never goes over my head that is always a risk. And so if it's not my life's calling anymore, it's just too great of a risk for me now.
So have you participated in the convention circuit yet? What was that experience like?
I have not, or I did way back for Mortal Kombat Legacy, actually. So that was probably, I think, 2013, so 10 years ago now. But since then, I have not done any conventions. I've been reached out to here and there, but I suffer from imposter syndrome. So for me, I'm like, who wants to talk to me?
Well, I say you got to jump into the convention circuit then. There's probably a lot of people who would want to get the autograph.
Oh, that's very sweet. I could just imagine myself being so awkward is the thing. What?
Well, it makes you feel better. Chance other people going for the autograph are just as awkward themselves as individuals.
Oh, yeah. That does make me feel better.
So what's next?
It's definitely.
It's
been floating in my peripheral for a while, so possibly.
So what's next for you? What's your next film's coming up?
My next film out would be called The Dresden Sun. So it's a cyberpunk indie with a first-time director, and we have an amazing cast: Christina Ricci, Stephen Roach, so Mina Suvari. So I'm very excited for that one. It was just an amazing group of people, and I got to be such good friends with so much of the cast. I'm just thrilled. I'm so excited to see how it all looks, because in any movie where there's that much visual effects, you only get the smallest taste of what it will be while you're working on it. Oftentimes you see it in post or you see it after post-production has already happened, and it just is a whole new experience. So I can't wait. I have not seen that yet. I've heard whispers of where it'll premiere and when, but I don't have too much information on it yet, other than that will be the next one out for me.
Well, without getting too into spoilers or saying anything you're not allowed to say, though if you want to say things you're not allowed to say, that's totally fine with me. Are we looking at a release date in 2023? And are we thinking, do we know if it's toward what you've heard? Is it towards the end or the middle of 2023?
I couldn't say for sure. I don't want to give wrong information, and I don't know that that information has even been solidified yet, so I wouldn't be able to speak on it. Yeah, I can say that I rock some purple hair and face tats, so
Oh,
I'm
very
excited.
cool.
Yeah, all of my characters are way cooler than how I am in my real life, so it's a good mini escape every time.
I don't. Let's see if you can answer this. Do you get to use some of your martial arts training as your character?
I don't want to give anything away too much. Yeah, I'll let that be surprised, but it is a bit different from what I have done in the past. So I wouldn't expect like Amazonian style. But
Are you allowed to say the name of your character, or does that or you want to need to wait on that?
I think it's on IMDb already. So yeah, my character's name is Z.
Z. Very cool. So, I'm guessing because when it comes out, are you able to come back on and talk about it when it's time?
Yeah, I would love to.
All right, that'd be absolutely awesome. I look forward to talk to you about, and it's called Dresden Sun.
Yes, the Dresden Sun.
Very cool. And I want to just thank you, Ms. Win, for coming on. You're absolutely fantastic, and I look forward to discussing it with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and have an awesome rest of your day.
And you as well.